how you feel about that Jordan Neely case? Seeing that video, man, that was heartbreaking, man.
That was tragic. The Jordan Neely New York City subway murder trial, it was uh it was tragic. It was unfair, gross negligence by the courts, gross negligence by the city of New York, gross negligence by everybody involved. It was an absolute miscarriage of justice. First of all, let's look at the facts of this case. Jordan Neely walks onto the subway train. He says, I'm hungry and I need some food. And I don't care if I die or go to jail or something to that effect. According to the witnesses, Art, who were examined in court, not a single witness corroborated the media's claim that he said he was going to kill anyone. Remember, when this first happened, Art, when he first died, the media put out that he said he was going to unalive people on that train. Remember that? He came on the train saying he was going to hurt people and unalive them. Well, guess what? Not a single person in court said that Jordan Neely claimed that he was going to unalive anybody. So that was nonsense. He said he was hungry. He said that he didn't care if he went to jail. He didn't care if he was unalive, but he never said he was going to hurt anybody. He never put his hands on anybody, Art. There was no physical altercation. There was no physical confrontation of any kind whatsoever. You have a mentally ill 30-year-old man diagnosed with schizophrenia who got pushed out of the foster care system onto the street, arrested more than 42 times in his history, saw his mother get beat to death as a child. He gets on the subway and he's hungry. And you know what's hurtful about this whole Jordan Neely travesty, Art, is the fact that nobody on the subway, nobody, including the black people, one of which helped hold him down while the Caucasian Daniel Penny suffocated him to death. Not a single person on the train, not even a black person, Art, would give him something to eat or some money to go buy something to eat. If anybody on that New York City subway train would have given Jordan Neely some food, he would still be alive. If they would have given him some money for some food, he would still be alive. Art, think about that. He died because he was hungry. So here comes G.I. Joe, 24-year-old ex-Marine Daniel Penny. 24-year-old. He decides to put him in a chokehold, tackle him to the ground. And he holds him on the ground, Art, for 6 minutes. 6. They tried to lie, his defense, and say that he only held him for 5. Well, guess what, Art? Even if it is the 5 claimed by his defense attorneys, even if it is the 6 that was found by prosecution, it don't make a difference. And why don't it make a difference, Art? Because after you lose oxygen for 3 minutes, brain cells start to die off. Brain cells start to die once you are deprived of oxygen for 3 minutes. You can die when you are deprived of oxygen for 4 minutes. So whether it was the 5 minutes of the defense attorneys or the 6 minutes of the prosecution, you choked this man long enough to kill him, and you knew it. How do we know he knew it, Art? How do we know 24-year-old ex-Marine Daniel Penny intended to kill Jordan Neely? I'll tell you how. Because he was an ex-Marine. In the Marine Corps, they train you on how to end life. You are taught what it takes to suffocate another individual. I went to boot camp for JROTC as a high school student, Art, in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, as a teenager when I was in high school. We had to go to boot camp. I was at a JROTC high school in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. We had to go to boot camp if we wanted to become an officer. If you wanted to become an officer at the school, you got to go to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, train with the adults, and you come back you can move up in rank. They taught us about the basics of suffocation. They taught us how long you can hold your breath, and you can suffocate and die. Basic little things are. So if I learned that 2 weeks at a summer camp in Fort Bragg Army, imagine what Daniel Penny was taught at Paris Island, South Carolina, basic training for the Marine Corps. He knew what it took to kill that man, and he took his life. And when they interviewed Daniel Penny after he was exonerated and set free, you know what he told the media, Art? He told the media the reason he continued to suffocate, and I'm paraphrasing, he told the media the reason he continued to suffocate Jordan Neely is because he was extremely strong. He said he was so strong that if I was going to let him go, and because I was on the ground under him, if I would let him go, he would be able to get up and probably attack me or attack somebody else. But if that's the case, Art, you have a whole train full of adults. Why you didn't tell somebody to get one leg, somebody to get the other leg? You had a black man holding Jordan Neely's hands while Daniel Penny choked him to death. He should have been brought up on charges. That black man who held his hands long enough for him to be suffocated, he should have been brought up on charges. Why didn't he hold one hand and another brother hold hand? You had a bunch of Latinos who was there, some Caucasians. Why you didn't ask them, get one leg, you get the other leg, and we're going to hold them down? And here's the other thing, Art. When the train arrived at the next stop, the passengers held the door open so the train wouldn't move any further until the police arrived to intervene. Well, guess what, Art? You think he would let him go? He continued to suffocate him even after the train stopped, even after the passengers were holding the doors open. And check this out, Art. According to the video, Daniel Penny continued to choke Jordan Neely for a minute longer after his body had already stopped moving. Art, he wasn't even moving no more. He wasn't even moving no more, probably already dead, possibly already unalived. He wasn't even moving anymore, and he kept him in the chokehold. And you can hear at least one passenger, you can hear him telling Daniel Penny, you are going to kill him. So you even had passengers who saw this man was being choked out. This was George Floyd all over again. The only difference, George Floyd was choked out by a police officer, and our good brother was choked out by an ex-Marine. Jordan Neely was choked out by an ex-Marine. That's the only difference. Now, black people are saying, Art, do we have any rights? The only rights you have in this country or anywhere else in the world are the rights that you're willing to fight for and the rights you are willing to die for. I want to go to the Dred Scott case, Art, because I think it will be good to explain Dred Scott to our people again. Dred Scott was a black man born into slavery in the same county as the prophet Nat Turner. Nat Turner and Dred Scott were both born in Southampton County, Virginia. Nat Turner was born in 1800. Dred Scott was born in 1799. Dred Scott's owner, slave master, took him, his wife Harriet, and their two daughters into the free territory of Wisconsin and maybe Illinois, Art. And Dred Scott, who was aware of the laws in the free territory, which said, if you keep your slaves in Wisconsin too long, they automatically become free because we are not a slave state, we are a free state. So Dred Scott said, even though I'm enslaved with my wife and daughters, we've been here too long. We have a right to be free. So he sued in court. The mistake the ancestor made, Art, he sued in Missouri. He did not sue in Wisconsin. So he was taken from Southampton County, Virginia, sold to slave owners in Missouri. He was then taken from the slave owners in Missouri to the free territory of Wisconsin. But when he sued, Art, he didn't sue in the free territory. He sued back home in Missouri, which was a slave state. But guess what, Art? He won the case. Dred Scott won the first case in Missouri. He won his freedom, but his slave master appealed the case to the Missouri State Supreme Court. And the Missouri State Supreme Court overturned the decision of the lower court. So Dred Scott and his wife decided to do what? Appeal the Missouri State Supreme Court to the U.S. Supreme Court. And on March the 6th of 1857, my first book, Psychoacademic Holocaust, was actually released on the anniversary of the Dred Scott case. So on March the 6th of 1857, Supreme Court Chief Justice, a notorious racist by the name of Roger B. Taney, read and wrote the majority decision for the Supreme Court. And I believe this case was decided on a 7-2 margin. 7 Supreme Court justices said, no, he don't get his freedom. 2 said he should get his freedom. And this is what they said, Art. They said, at the time the United States Constitution was being drafted right here in Philadelphia. In fact, about 5 minutes from where we talking, Art, in Independence Hall. He said that when the United States Constitution was being drafted, the framers of the Constitution, the founding fathers of the United States, did not consider black people to be citizens of the United States, did not consider black people to be their equal. And as a result of that, black people were not considered citizens of the United States and never could be considered citizens of the United States. He said that the framers of the Constitution and the Constitution itself considered black people to be an inferior race who were subjugated and brought to America as slaves and as property, and have always been considered to be inferior to Caucasians. And as a result of that, the black man has no rights at all that the white man is bound to respect. That's why Daniel Penny was not convicted. And what's crazy about his sentence, Art, or should I say the verdict, they threw out the second-degree manslaughter, which would have gave him 15 years in jail. But they also found him not guilty of the, criminally negligent homicide. That was the charge in question. That's when you unalive somebody, not really intentionally, it's kind of unintentional, but you're so negligent about the person's care that it leads to their unaliving, for which you can be held responsible. How did he beat that charge? How can suffocating somebody for 6 minutes, which you know is going to result in death, how does that not reach the standard of criminally negligent homicide? My verdict, Art, on this situation: Jordan Neely was murdered because he was homeless, black, and mentally ill. And Daniel Penny, his executioner, was vindicated of all charges because he was a privileged white male and a former Marine Corps veteran. This is another unfortunate case that shows you this country does not respect black life. And if we want this country to respect black life, we have to make them respect life. And that can only come through strong organization and a strong political and economic challenge to the power structure of America and the white status quo. In other words, Art, until black people start sticking together, standing up, sacrificing time, life, and money, we will never be free. I think we just had about 5 black people get killed unalived in the past 2 weeks by police and others, and nothing's being done about it. This doesn't change unless we fight. My ancestor Frederick Douglass said, what? If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who are whipped the easiest are those who will be whipped the most.
Yeah, I still can't get over that video, man. I can't believe the guy got away with that, man.
Absolutely, man. And he knew he would beat the case. He knew he would beat the case. That's why he did it. Just like the cop who shot Sonia Massey. He's probably going to beat the case. Of course, we're going to do all we can to show that to hope that he doesn't beat the case. But police have been rewarded with freedom and lack of jail time for killing black people. So why would they stop? And we just crashed out over Kamala Harris. Black people crashed out over Kamala Harris. She ain't said a word about this. She ain't said a word about Sonia Massey. She ain't said a word about that brother who was executed in Missouri, I think it was, Dred Scott State. All these killings of innocent black people, and the vice president, who everybody thought we should vote for, ain't said a word. The president in office hasn't said a word. And the president-elect, Donald Trump, hasn't said a word and isn't going to say a word. We are on our own. We are on our own. And that's okay if we admit it, accept it, and begin to organize about it.